The real thing is not possible. Remember what Jesus says? Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I want you to pay attention very carefully to what Jesus says when he gives us the new commandment to love. He says, love one another as I have loved you. But listen to what he says first. As the Father has loved me, so I've loved you. From all eternity, Jesus is receptive to the love of the Father. From all eternity, he's the one with the open chalice, so to speak, in relation to the Father. And because he has received the love of the Father, he's able to pour it out. There's a basic principle here. You cannot give what you do not have. And when we look at the commandments, we think that's impossible. And we're right. Unless we open to the love that Christ has poured out, it will be impossible to pour that love out for others. So listen to what Jesus says next. Before he gives us the commandment to love, he says, remain in my love. Receive my love. Be there at the foot of the cross with the open chalice. Open your heart to my love. Because if you're not open to my love, you're never going to be able to live what I'm about to tell you. And only then does he say, love one another as I have loved you. And then he says, I tell you this so that your life might be miserable. Is that what he says?
No.
Listen to this. I tell you this. Love one another as I have loved. I tell you this so that my joy might be in you and your joy might be complete. This is what love and responsibility is all about. Letting Christ's love in us and sharing it with others so that our joy might be complete. Sadly, if you look at the first bullet on page 1, what we typically consider love in the sexual sphere often turns out, upon closer examination, to be its exact opposite. Two people using each other. I remember reading Love and Responsibility for the first time in 1994. I was in my mid-20s at the time. And it really convicted me. I had never heard this before. I thought the opposite of love was hatred. I never hated anybody, really. I mean, maybe I was tempted to hate a few people. But when I heard this, that the opposite of love is two people using each other, I was convicted. Because I had been in a lot of relationships where I was just using people. And I had also been used by people. And it hurts when we're used. It really hurts. I'll never forget the first time I felt it. I was 14 years old. And it was one of the first times I had ever made out with a girl. I don't know how you say that in Portuguese, but in English we say we make out. What do you say?
Ficar.
Yeah, that.
Gente, eu não sei.
And I thought because I had made out with this girl that we were now going to have a relationship. And she said, no, I don't want a relationship with you. And I said, well, why did we do that? And she said, I just wanted to have a story to tell my friends. That hurt a lot. A lot. And I wept for a couple days. And then I hardened my heart. And I said, fine. If that's how girls are going to treat me, I'm just going to play the same game. If they're going to use me, I'm going to use them. My dear sisters, please forgive me. You are never, ever, ever meant to be treated as a thing for someone else's pleasure. Never. Before I go any further, I want to speak this word into each of the hearts of my sisters here. Now, a woman could stand up here and say the same thing to all the men, but that's not my job. I want to speak as a representative of the male side of the human race right now. And men, we know that we have a strong inclination to treat women just as objects for our sexual pleasure. My dear sisters, I ask you, please ask God for the grace to forgive me and to forgive other men who have treated you as a thing. I know these wounds go very, very deep. Pay attention to that pain. Our pain is very instructive. When I was 14, I should have paid attention to my pain because it would have taught me something is not right here. But what did I do instead? I numbed myself to the pain. And I just brought more pain into the world by using people. Our pain is instructive. If I numb my hand, this is very dangerous because I could put it on a hot stove and not even know it's burning. But if I am sensitive to the pain, I'll know not to do that. Pay attention to your pain. Pay attention to your emotional pain. Pay attention to your psychological pain. Pay attention to your physical pain. Pay attention to your sexual pain. Because the truth of the church's teaching on sexual love is confirmed in the wounds and the pain of a culture that has rejected it. I was 14 when I hardened my heart and numbed myself to the pain. And 5 years later, I was in so much pain. The numbing was no longer working. I was 19 years old, and I fell on my knees, and I said, God in heaven, if you exist, you better show me why you gave me all these desires, because they're getting me and everybody I know into a hell of a lot of trouble. Why did you give me these desires? And what am I supposed to do with them? Please, 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 if you're there, please help me. Please show me. I'm in so much pain. I know I'm not the only one. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Pay attention to your pain. It will lead you, if you pay attention to it, it will lead you to that joy we were talking about. It will lead you to the promised land. Yes, it passes through the cross. Love always passes through the cross, but it leads to glory. It leads to everything we desire. Look at quote number 1. Responsibility for love clearly comes down to responsibility for the value and dignity of the person. Anyone who is capable of reacting to the sexual values inherent in the person, but cannot see the values of the person as such, will always confuse love and lust. What's the difference between love and lust? We're going to talk about that a lot today. The difference between love and lust. You see, in the beginning, before sin came into the world, God created sexual desire to be the very power to love as God loves. We could say that in the beginning, Eros expressed agape. Sexual love expressed sacrificial love. Sexual love expressed the desire to give up our bodies for the other in a gift of sacrifice. It expressed this. Please raise your hand if this is the way you experience sexual desire when you hit puberty. As nothing but the desire to sacrifice yourself for other people like Jesus. Is that the way we experience our sexual desires in this world today? I don't think so. Something has gone wrong. Something has gone terribly wrong. Remember I said you cannot give what you do not have. Well, to use a biblical image, in the beginning, they were naked without shame. Why? Because they were filled with God's wine. Wine in the Bible is a symbol of God's love poured out for us. They were filled with God's wine. They were sharing in God's love. But do you know what happened with original sin? The married couple ran out of wine. And you cannot give what you do not have. When we run out of wine, Eros no longer expresses agape. It gets turned in on itself. And it becomes not a desire to love, but a desire to use. This is tragic. But I have some good news for you. Where did Jesus perform his first miracle? And what did he do? He came to a wedding where the couple had run out of wine. And what does he do? He restores the wine in superabundance. Do you know what Jesus' first miracle actually is? It's the healing of Eros. It's the restoration of agape to Eros. How do we live this? We got to get drunk on God's wine. Did you know that's the goal of the Christian life? To get totally drunk. Drunk on God's wine. What did they accuse the apostles of on Pentecost Day when the love of God fell on them? They thought they were drunk. And they were on God's wine. If we are not drunk on God's wine, everything I tell you today will just seem like a list of rules to follow. I am not here to give you a list of rules to follow. I'm here to get you drunk on God's wine. Because if you're drunk on God's wine, everything you learn today will be like sweet music. It will be like oil on your wounds. And when you hear this sweet music, it makes you feel like dancing. This is what sexual morality is all about. It's about hearing God's love song and dancing in step with it. The sad thing is most of us, we grow up as Catholics, and maybe we were taught the rules of the dance. Maybe you wanted to put your foot there, and somebody said, "Don't put your foot there." And you said, "Why?" And they said, "Because I told you so." Is that going to help anybody? If you're taught the rules of the dance, but you never hear the music, the rules of the dance are not going to make any sense. We're not just here to talk about the rules of the dance. We're here to turn the music on so that we can hear the music and dance in step. Because when you hear the music and your foot goes out, you're like, "Oh, I feel it. I shouldn't have done that." And you bring it back. Not because somebody told you to, but because you feel it in your own body. "I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't in step with the dance." How do we stay in step with the dance? With God's love song. That's what today is all about. Look at quote number 2. Observation of life and pastoral experience show that there is an immense need for knowledge of how to express Christ's love through sexual love. That's what today is all about. Learning to express Christ's love through our bodies. Now, some of you might say, "Well, what about me, Christopher? I'm not married. I'm a consecrated celibate. I'm never even going to get married." Guess what? They were both celibate too. And guess what they're doing right there? They're living the ultimate truth of their sexuality. Whatever your state in life, whether you're married, single, or a consecrated celibate, all of us are called by God to learn how to love through our bodies in the right way. That has one expression in married life, that has another expression in the single life, that has another expression in the consecrated life. But all of us, whatever our state in life, we must learn sexual virtue. We must open to God's wine, and we must learn how to express agape through eros. In other words, sexual activity is not the only way to express agape through eros. Because right here on the cross, Jesus himself is expressing agape through eros. So there's no one excluded here. We are going to talk a lot today about specifically the love of a man and a woman in marriage. But that's going to be our model for understanding every state in life. Because as we said last night, the entire Christian life bears the mark of Christ's spousal love. In one way or another, every man, by virtue of his sexuality, is called to be a husband and a father. In one way or another. Why do we call a priest father? He's married to the church. He bears numerous spiritual children. Why do we call Mother Teresa Mother Teresa? She's married to Christ, and she bore numerous spiritual children. So marriage becomes the model, in a way, of all human love. Is that making sense? So don't think this isn't for you because you're not married. Okay, let's turn to page 2. Juan, could we bring up image number 2? What is the difference between an animal and a human person? If we get this wrong, if we think there's no difference, then we will never, ever understand sexual morality. There is a song I heard a long time ago, probably 20 years ago or more, and it always stayed with me. The lyrics went like this: "We ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do it on the Discovery Channel."
Yes.
Have you noticed there is a big push in the modern world to say that human beings and animals are just the same thing? Now, we are animals, but we're not merely animals. Person. Person is the word we use to distinguish us from the animals. And I know, there's a lot of people who want to say chickens are also persons. Chickens are persons too. No. Chickens do not look up at the stars and wonder what's out there. Chickens do not write music or poetry. Chickens do not come to seminars like this to ask the question, what does it mean to be a chicken? Chickens do not build cathedrals or skyscrapers. And nor do chickens get into airplanes and fly them into skyscrapers. What is my point? Morality makes no sense if we're merely animals. Morality makes no sense if we are merely animals. Have you noticed? We are the only animals that wear clothing. Dogs are not ashamed of their sexual behavior. Why? Because they're dogs. There's no such thing as sexual morality for dogs. I don't know if that's a horse or a donkey or what, but there's no such thing as sexual morality for horses. But we are ashamed when we do something with our sexuality that we shouldn't have done. When we use other people, we should be ashamed because we know, even if we're trying to justify our behavior, way down in there, if we're being honest, way down in there, we know we're not just animals and we're not just meant to behave like animals. We're meant to learn how to love. What do we have that the animals don't have?
That's so.
Freedom. Freedom. This is precisely what distinguishes us from the animals. Look here on page 2, under the heading, Love Persons Use Things. The crisis of love in the modern world is a crisis of vision. Jesus says, we look, but we do not see. What does that mean? We look, but we do not see. Guys, I'm going to ask the ladies a question, and I want you to pay careful attention to their answer. Ladies, do you prefer to be looked at or seen? Please raise your hand if you prefer to be looked at. Take a look around the room, guys. Never has a woman's hand gone up when I've asked that question. Raise your hand, ladies, if you prefer to be seen. Ah, guys, take a look around the room. So you know there's a difference. What's the difference? Looking only goes skin deep. And when we live in a culture that looks but does not see, the emphasis becomes on how we look. It all becomes external. A culture of plastic surgery, where men and women are reshaping the way they look on the outside by plastic surgery. This is a culture that looks but does not see. What are we failing to see? We're failing to see the interior beauty of the person. We're failing to see the inner mystery of the person. Could we bring up number 33, please, Juan? The word person comes from the Greek word prosopon. Prosopon. And pros means eye or face. And prosopon means the encounter face to face or eye to eye. To be a person means that we long to see another seeing us. Not just to be looked at as something, but to be seen as someone. You see, things are dispensable, replaceable, and repeatable. What do I mean? I don't know. Your phone, right? It's a thing. It's dispensable, right? When the new model comes out, you're going to throw this one away or give it away. Things are dispensable and replaceable. You're going to give this one away and you're going to replace it with another one. In fact, you can replace it with another one just like it. Because things are dispensable, replaceable, and repeatable. There are 10 million of the very same model of phone out there somewhere else. That's the nature of something. But someone, the person, is indispensable. Have you ever had somebody use you and then throw you away? Like I did when I was 14? Why did I weep for days? Oh, because that hurt. I didn't have the language for it, but what I was experiencing is the pain of being treated as dispensable. And guess what? She was with another guy making out a couple weeks later. I felt replaceable and repeatable. You don't have headphones on. Do you understand English? What's your name? Mary Beatriz? Maria Beatriz. Yes. Maria Beatriz. There's no other you. You are absolutely unrepeatable. You are the only you that there ever was or ever will be, which means meeting you is an absolute privilege. Thank you for letting me look in your eyes and get a glimpse of your unrepeatable person. Bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. It is truly, truly. I'm not just doing this for show. Like truly, when someone gives you the honor and privilege of getting a glimpse of the person, it's such a privilege. There's no other you. You're the only one. Maria Beatriz reveals in this world a beam of God's glory that no one else in the whole world reveals. And if I'm just looking, I won't see it. When we're just looking, we treat people as if they were things, and we use them for our pleasure. And when they no longer bring us pleasure, what do? We throw them away, and we replace them with someone else. And when we are treated that way, oh man, it hurts. And that pain is very instructive. Don't numb yourself to the pain like I did. Pay attention to that pain. And be not afraid to open that pain to Jesus. Like this woman is doing right here. This is a very brave woman. This is a very, very brave woman. She's been caught in adultery. She's probably been used and disposed of by men her whole life. She traded in the desire to be seen and settled for the desire to be looked at. And she probably learned how to attract the attention of a lot of men by the way she looked. But it just stopped at the surface. And so these men used her, and she used them. And then she's caught right in the act. But look how Jesus treats her. Look how Jesus treats her. He sees her. He sees what she's really looking for. He sees her pain. He sees her shame. Let's go to another biblical story. Maybe this is the woman at Simon the Pharisee's house. Remember the sinful woman who crashed the party at Simon's house, Simon the Pharisee? And Simon the Pharisee says to Jesus, he says to himself, if Jesus were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman this is. And he wouldn't let her touch him. But listen to what Jesus says. It says in the gospel that Jesus was looking right at the woman. His gaze was on her. But he was talking to Simon. And listen to what he says. Simon, do you see this woman? Simon looked, but he did not see. The crisis of love in the modern world, my brothers and sisters, is a crisis of vision. We look, but we do not see. That's the bad news. We've all been deeply wounded in this culture. We're all guilty of looking but not seeing. That's the bad news. And I'll say again to each of my sisters here, please forgive me for my blindness. Please forgive me and other men for the ways we have looked at you but not seen you. These wounds go so deep in our hearts. And don't make any mistake here. I do not think this is only a man's problem. A woman could also apologize to all the men, but that's not my job. The bad news is we are blind. We look, but we do not see. But here's the good news. Are you ready for some good news? Christ came into the world to give sight to the blind. That's good news. That's good news. But we got to let him heal our blindness. Don't be afraid to let Jesus spit in the dirt of your life and make that mud and smear it on your eyes. Don't be afraid. Let him open your eyes. Jesus, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us. We're blind. Have mercy on us. We want to see. Let that be our prayer. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. I want to see. I want to see. I want to see the true beauty of Maria Beatriz. I want to see her true beauty. Not just on the outside, but inside and outside. Don't think to be holy we dispense with the body and physical beauty. No, we don't dispense with the body. It's not the spirit or the body. It's the spirit and the body. It's the body, if we have eyes to see, the body reveals the spirit. The body reveals the spirit. If we have eyes to see. Look at the second bullet on page 2. Here John Paul II speaks about the utilitarian principle and the personalistic principle. What does he mean? The utilitarian principle is all about pleasure. What brings me pleasure? When pleasure is the primary goal, we look but we do not see. And we end up treating people as objects for our pleasure. While utilitarianism, this is the second bullet here, while utilitarianism wants to safeguard the value of pleasure at all costs, personalism, this is where we honor the true dignity of the person, wants to safeguard the value of the person at all costs. Herein lies the crux of the conflict between Catholic and secular views of sexuality. Which has the higher value? The value of pleasure or the value of the person? The church is not saying that the church is not saying that pleasure is not valuable. Pleasure is valuable, but it's not nearly as valuable as the person. And the question here, if you look at the next bullet, am I willing to sacrifice my pleasure for the value of other persons, or do I prefer to sacrifice other persons for the value of my pleasure? That is the summary of everything John Paul II is trying to teach us. Don't sacrifice the person for your pleasure. Be willing to sacrifice your pleasure for the dignity of the person. That's the beginning of love. That is the foundation of love. That we stop treating people as things for our pleasure, and we see the true value of honoring the dignity of the person no matter what it costs me. No matter what it costs me. Even if it really hurts. Could we bring up number 1 again, please, Juan? Even if it leads me right here. And indeed, if we are to learn what it means to love, we have to go to the cross. Love one another as I have loved you. How did Christ love us? Through the sacrifice of his very body and blood. This is my body given for you. Now, this is where it starts to get daunting. We think, how can anyone possibly live that way? We can't. Unless we are drunk on God's wine. This is not about pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and trying really hard to love. It's about falling on our knees and realizing, I can't do it, Lord. Now we're open to receive his love. And his love can begin flowing out of us because it's flowing into us. You cannot give what you do not have. Whenever you think, I can't do it, just remember this image of the open chalice receiving the flow of blood and water from Christ's heart. Look at 1b on page 2. Persons are distinguished from even the most advanced animals by a specific inner self, an inner life. It's impossible to speak about the inner life of animals. This is what we're after. We're after the understanding of the difference between this and this. We're in a lot of pain in the modern world because we've been behaving like animals when it comes to our sexuality. We've treated sexuality as just some instinct, some itch that we have to scratch. And when sexual desire is treated as an instinct, an itch that we have to scratch, we use people rather than love them to scratch our own itch. We're all guilty here. We're guilty of this, all of us. And guess what? Marriage does not make it okay to do this to one another. Marriage is not just the legalization of you scratching your itch. Marriage is the vocation to love as God loves. And this means we are in need of a profound conversion of our hearts, a deep inner purification of our hearts. Be not afraid. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize your behavior. Well, everybody treats people that way, Christopher. What's the problem? What's the problem? Look at all the pain in the world. That's the problem. You know what happens when we treat sexuality as nothing but an itch to scratch? Do you know what happens? The family collapses. And abortion and pornography become the norm. We kill people so that we can keep scratching our itch. That's the problem. The culture in which we live today, that's the problem. If you love the way society is today, well, just keep scratching your itches because you'll keep contributing to the problem. If you love the way the world is today, that's where it comes from. But if you are very concerned about the state of the world, and the state of the family, and the state of the church, and the pain that you and everybody else is in, if you're worried about that, like I am, then we have to go to the root. And the problem is not out there somewhere. The problem is right in here. The problem is in my heart and yours. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. This is not a question in which you should be raising your hands. But how many of you in this room in the last week have been looking at pornography? This is a problem. The problem with pornography is not that it shows the naked body. The Sistine Chapel shows the naked body. The problem with pornography is that it trains our minds and our hearts to treat other people as things to be used for our own selfish pleasure. That's the problem with pornography. It trains us in the exact opposite of love. It trains us to be animals. It trains us to be animals. That would be fine if we were only animals, but we're not. We're called to love. And we have to go on pilgrimage to learn what that means. Look at quote 2a. On page 3. Man is by nature capable of rising above instinct in his actions, in the sexual sphere and elsewhere. If it were otherwise, morality would have no meaning. We would just be like the animals. You see, for animals, the sexual urge is merely an instinct. But for human persons, the sexual urge, listen to what John Paul II says, 2b, the sexual urge is a property of the whole of human existence, and not just of one of its spheres or functions. This really defines us as men and women made in the image and likeness of God. What's the very first commandment God gives the human race? In the book of Genesis. Very first commandment, what is it?
Be fruitful and multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply. The very first commandment is to learn how to love with your body. And so John Paul II can say the sexual urge is a natural drive born in all human beings. A vector of aspiration along which their whole existence develops and perfects itself from within. Now, if we're just following our sexual urge like an animal, it's not going to perfect us from within. But if we're learning to follow our sexual urge as a call to love as a person made in the image and likeness of God, now we're on the pilgrimage that leads to the promised land. Woohoo! That's exciting. It's going to be a long journey, my brothers and sisters, to get there. Be not afraid. In fact, if you stay the journey, it will lead you to God Himself. Look how John Paul II puts it. 2D. If man would look deeply enough into his own nature as a sexual being in need of completion, it might help him to understand the contingent character of his existence, which is to say, it might help us understand our need for God. But people in general do not get this far in their reflections on the fact of sex. Why? Why don't we get that far? Why doesn't sex lead us to God? Because we look, but we do not see. Juan, can we bring up number 7? You see, the whole reason God created us as sexual beings, the whole reason God made us male and female and called the two to become one flesh, is to give us a key to the ultimate plan of God. That we would become one flesh in what the Bible calls the marriage of the Lamb. That we would become one flesh with Jesus in the Eucharist. The whole purpose of this Holy Communion, as we said last night, is to lead us to this Holy Communion. And if that sounds strange, I'll tell you a story that might help make it make sense. I never met my father-in-law. He died when my wife was a girl. But I admire him tremendously because of this story. My father-in-law married my mother-in-law in the mid-60s. It was a Saturday, the day of their wedding. And that night, like married couples do, the two became one flesh. They consummated their marriage. The next day, they went to Mass for the first time as husband and wife. And coming back from receiving the Eucharist, coming back to the pew, my father-in-law was in tears. And his new bride said, "Honey, what is it?" And through his tears, he said, "For the first time in my life, I understood the meaning of those words. This is my body given up for you." Make no mistake. When all of the confusion is cast out, when all of the lies that we have believed about our sexuality are rebuked, we will discover that the deepest truth of this Holy Communion is to give us the key to this Holy Communion. Christ and the church. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. St. Paul says this is a great mystery, and it refers to Christ and the church. You see, the problem with the modern world is not that it overvalues sex. That's not the problem at all. The problem with the modern world is that it has no flippin' clue how valuable sex is. So we treat it with no value. We treat it like some entertainment. When sex is entertainment, it's inevitable. We are looking, but we are not seeing. And we are using, and we are not loving. Now that can be all very heavy and scary. Juan, could we please bring up number 23? I want to close here before we take a break. Remember I said that the source of the love that we're all desiring comes from the open side of Christ. O blood and water that flowed from the wounded heart of Christ, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. My brothers and sisters, we are in misery. How do I know this? Because we live in a culture that looks but doesn't see. We live in a culture that uses but doesn't love. And this means we are in misery. But here's the good news. We can plug in to God's misericordia. Is that close to the Portuguese word for mercy?
Yes.
Misericordia, the Latin, misericordia. Do you know what it means if you pick apart the word? It means a heart that gives itself to those in misery. A heart that gives itself to those in misery. Plug in. Where are your pain points? What have you suffered? What are your painful memories? When was the first time you were exposed to pornography? When was the first time you masturbated? When was the first time that somebody used you and you used somebody else? Take that memory and plug it into the open heart of Jesus. Just plug it in right here. And you know what's going to happen? Power is going to go out from his body to bring healing to your heart. Don't be afraid to share your painful memories with Jesus. He already knows everything about your life. And he does not look at you with scolding or with shame. He looks at you with great love. 33, please, Juan. He looks at you with great love. He looks at you with great love. Lord, we come to you just as we are, caught in adultery. Do you know what the word adultery means? It comes from the Latin ad alter, and it means to alter something from its original intention. We have all altered sexuality from its original intention. All of us. Let me give you a visual here, but I have to go grab something in my bag. Hold on one second. We've all altered sexuality from its original intention. And in this sense, we are guilty, all of us, of adultery. I'm not saying we've all gone out and committed adultery in the strict sense of the word. But when you understand the true meaning of the word, to alter something from its original intention, we're all guilty of that. I want you to imagine that this is the most beautiful painting you've ever seen in your life. Do I hear some oohs?
Ooh.
Do I hear some ahs?
Oh.
Thanks for playing. What is this a painting of? This is a painting of man and woman just as God created us to be when we were naked and felt no shame. Just pause on that for a minute. God created us naked without shame. They were celebrating their sexuality as God created, not the way people celebrate their sexuality today. That's not a celebration, and I'll demonstrate why in just a minute. In the beginning, they were naked without shame because they saw each other. They weren't just looking. They were seeing each other. And what did they see in each other's nakedness? They saw the call to love as God loves. How does God love? God's love. Turn to page 4. God's love is generous. It generates. Look at quote 2L. Although it is not possible to attribute human qualities to the eternal generation of the Son by the Father, every element of human generation bears within itself a likeness to, or an analogy with, the divine generating, and with the fatherhood which in God is completely spiritual and divine. Now, what does that mean? That's a lot of theological language. What does it mean? I said this last night, but many of you weren't here, so I'll say it again. From all eternity, the Father is generating the Son. Not in a sexual way, but in a purely divine and spiritual way. The Father is generating the Son. And it's as if the Trinity is having a conversation amongst themselves when they say, let's make a creature in our image. Let's make creatures that can do what we're doing. What is the Trinity doing for all eternity? Generating. Generating the Son. So God made us male and female with the power to generate. Do you know why we are blind to the beauty and glory and dignity and value of human sexuality in the modern world? Do you know why we're blind? Because we are wearing condom-colored glasses. We have removed fertility from the equation. And when you remove fertility from the sexual equation, it's no longer about establishing a family. Sexuality becomes about me and my pleasure. And I will use you as long as you give me pleasure. But as soon as you don't bring me the pleasure that I like, what am I going to do with you? I'm going to throw you away, and I'm going to go use somebody else. And if a baby gets in the way of this, no problem, we'll just kill it. This sounds like a horror movie. But it's the world we're living in right now. Why were they naked without shame in this painting? Because they saw the beauty of the call to image the life-giving love of the Trinity in their bodies. A man's body makes no sense by itself. A woman's body makes no sense by itself, but seen in light of each other, unless we are blind, unless we are looking but not seeing, we discover, stamped right in the sexual difference, we discover the call to life-giving love. Life-giving love. Life-giving love. Can we bring up number 1:1? We discover the call to this. Because what does Jesus say to the woman? He says, "Woman, behold your son." The beloved disciple at the foot of the cross becomes the mystical offspring of the mystical marriage of Christ and the church. You see, sex is all about life. The enemy gets his hands on this painting and he twists it up. And when he twists it up, sex is no longer all about life. Life is now all about sex. And we get fixated on this twisted, messed up, pornographic vision of sexuality. And then we get really hurt by it. We get really sick when we indulge in this distorted, twisted vision. And then we think the solution, and this is what the enemy wanted all along, we think the solution is to throw the painting away. First, we worship sex like it's everything we ever wanted, and then we hate it. Why? We will eventually despise whatever we idolize. We will eventually despise whatever we idolize. Why? Because our idols can never give us what we wanted out of them. And then we start to resent them because they didn't give us what we wanted. And then we throw the painting away. That's what the modern world is now doing. It's just throwing the painting away. And this is what a lot of religious people do too. We just throw the painting away because we think it's all bad. It's not all bad. Mark my words. The devil does not have his own clay, as I said last night. All the devil can do is twist God's clay. The solution to our pain is not to throw the crumpled up painting away. The solution to our pain is to give that crumpled painting to Jesus. Because guess what Jesus is going to do? He's going to uncrumple the painting. This is what the miracle at Cana is all about. This is what Christianity itself is all about. It's about uncrumpling the painting so we can rediscover who we really are. This is who we really are. Not this, celebrating it, and not that. Christianity invites us to this. So be not afraid. We all start out crumpled up. Every single one of us start out crumpled up. And we think the solution is just bury that down in there and then put on a happy face. What does the Bible say about Jesus standing at the door of our hearts and He's knocking. He's knocking at the door of our hearts. Why? Because He wants us to bring this up and out. Not so He can shame us, not so He can scold us, but so that He can redeem us by uncrumpling the painting. Be not afraid to go on that journey. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Jesus, we come to you just as we are, with all that's crumpled up in our hearts, with all of our painful memories, with all of the misery that comes from living in a world that looks but does not see. We come to you just as we are. And we ask you, Lord, uncrumple that painting in our lives. Spit in the dirt of our lives and smear that healing mud all over our face so that our eyes might be opened. Stick your fingers in our ears, Lord, and groan so that our ears might be opened and we might hear the love song of heaven and learn to dance in step with it. Teach us the true meaning of love and responsibility. We ask this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Vinny's going to come out with a few announcements for us and some promotions.